For more than 25 years, Mick Hucknall has toured the globe with Simply Red, a far cry from the Manchester suburb of Denton, where it all began.
My early memories of Manchester are mostly in black and white. Always this kind of drizzle, you know, very, very grubby.
Mick's taken me on a tour of his old neighbourhood to see what life was like before Simply Red.
So this here is West Park Avenue, where I grew up, and this is my father's house.
When Mick was just 3 years old, his parents separated, and Dad, Reg, took on the job of raising his son alone.
My first memory is with him when I was about 3, and this was right in the middle of the emergence of the Beatles. This would have been 1963. I would stand in front of my dad's mirror in his bedroom with a yardstick, holding it really high like John Lennon used to hold the guitar, and pretend I was John Lennon.
Mick clearly had a passion for rock and roll, but his family didn't quite get it right when they gave him
an accordion. You know, I wanted a guitar, an accordion. It set me back years.
And your dad, though, liked his music too, didn't he?
Oh,
so,
yeah,
you know,
very much so, yeah. He'd always be listening to the radio, and he'd say to me stuff like, "That's going to be a hit. You mark my words, that's going to be a huge record, that is."
What about when he heard you singing Holding Back the Years upstairs? Did he shout that up then?
No, everything I did was bloody rubbish. Okay, so now we're going into Manor Close. This is where I was effectively brought up. And up here at number 4 was where I described her as my Auntie Nellie. She wasn't really my auntie, but they looked after me when my dad was working. I used to spend time in your house.
Did you know that?
Yeah. I kind of grew up in there.
Along with music, Mick's other passion was Man United.
Christine, let me show you a real football fan.
You're going to say
Are
that.
you watching, Frankie boy? Are you watching? Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today at the 2010-2011 season Premiership champions and Champions League medal winners. But I went to my first football match in 1968. I was 8 years old, and George Best was still playing, and Bobby Charlton and Dennis Law. It was an incredible moment for me. I would stand at that end with a group of my mates from Denton. I could never have imagined that further down the line that I'd be standing in the middle of that field and performing there on stage during the Euro '96. It was one of the biggest thrills of my career.
So, you know, if someone had said international music star, international football star.
It was always music. As Sir Alex said to me later in my life, he said, "You know got the legs, son."
From the start of Simply Red, Mick Hucknall has been as famous for his red hair as he has for his songs. But back in his teens, it seemed like his flaming locks were holding him back.
I tried to be in a band when I was about 13, and they weren't keen on having me in because I had red hair. Apart from David Bowie, there isn't really any male redheads that are kind of famous singers.
But when the Sex Pistols played their first northern gig at the Free Trade Hall in Manchester, Mick realised there were no longer any rules about being a rock star.
This was the first time I saw something that was like my generation. Yeah. They were kind of spotty and kind of messy like we were, you know.
Made you feel like you fitted in, yeah?
Yeah, I related.
And that gig, it just happened to be at one of Mick's favourite haunts.
The Free Trade Hall was one of the main music venues when I was about 15, 16.
It's a hotel now, of course.
Yeah, it's still a beautiful building.
Yeah.
Mick and his mates had never seen anything like the Sex Pistols before. This is rare archive footage of that very first gig. And Mick became such a regular on the punk scene, he even got caught on camera.
Yeah.
Oh, it's brilliant.
Embarrassing.
Oh, no, it's not embarrassing. You can just see the want in your eyes. You're just...
It's going to be me one day. You can see I'm eager.
You are.
Yeah.
That Free Trade Hall gig was the spark Mick needed to start his first band, the Frantic Elevators.
We started out rehearsing after we'd seen the Sex Pistols, and it was just about 4 or 5 years of just sheer fun.
And it was while Mick was in the Frantic Elevators that he wrote one of his most iconic songs.
I barely could play guitar, and it was almost while I was learning to play that I just found this one chord, and then all of a sudden, holding back the years. It doesn't sound very punk-like, does it? Thinking of the fear I've had so long. I wrote the song when I was 17, but didn't actually write the chorus until I was in Simply Red, when I was 24. I'll keep holding on. It somehow captures my life, my life's experience of not having a mother and being brought up by my father, and it's all in that song. And your first record, it's like a diamond to you.
In 1985, after years of hard work, Simply Red's debut album hit the charts, launching Mick into a roller coaster ride of fame and fortune, which was exactly what he'd always wanted.
I got commercial success, and here's the news, I liked it.
Did you have that feeling like this is it now, I am actually living it?
I was living every boy's dream. I was seducing hundreds and hundreds of women who were very happy to be seduced. It was the greatest.
How did your family even react, going back to the humble beginnings?
I remember my dad saying to somebody at the release of our second album, I don't think he's going to keep going, you know. You'll end up getting yourself a proper job, don't you worry. And a proper job what? What else could I do? This was what I was meant to do.
And a proper job it was. With 2 albums already selling millions, the next album was due to be a huge success.
We'd had a #1 in America. The album was top 20, it was top 5 all over the world, and we were touring all over the world. And I got criticised for having too many covers on the record. So I got kind of irritated by that, and I said, right, the next record I write, I'm going to write all the songs. And that turned out to be Stars. With Stars, I reached the mountaintop, and there was nothing there. Why have I not found someone to love? Why is it just ongoing? Woman, party, drink, woman, party, drink. I started to think then, I need to start sorting myself out.
Sometimes you need to take it to the limit, don't you, before you start to appreciate actually it's the simple things that make you happy.
Well, there's a line in a Faces song called Debris that says, I went there and back just to see how far it was. And from about 1985 till 2001, I most definitely went there and back. Did it all, and came out just about with my liver intact.
You've matured, as you say, and now suddenly you have become the family man that you at one point probably never thought you'd get to, really.
Well, I always wanted it, I just didn't know how to do it, and I needed to set myself free in order to do it. Now I'm a committed husband and father, and I have a family. I've never had a family.
And bringing Simply Red to an end, was that partly because you'd finished that chapter of your life and you were about to embark upon something else now?
Absolutely. I think to finally have something that I never had, I think has enabled me to not necessarily hide behind a name.
You don't feel the need to having a huge reunion gig again, maybe in 5 years' time or whatever. How do you feel about Simply Red?
We've had a lot of incredible moments that I really treasure, you know, but I don't really feel a strong urge to go back. I like moving ahead. I'm out. See you later.
Well, looking ahead, though, does involve the Faces, and that you're doing that for fun, basically, aren't you?
It's completely bonkers. It's beyond what I could ever imagine. I still think Rod's an amazing artist, and so I got given this chance to sing these songs with this band I used to idolise. I feel like a kid in a sweet shop.
Did you ever believe that this life that you've lived so far was ever going to happen?
Yes, I did. I always believed You know, I didn't know to what extent the level, but I always thought, I don't care what anybody else says. I don't care about whether there's no red-headed singers. I don't care. I'm going to do it, and I did it. I'm doing it.